Hey up everybody and welcome back. Well, as you can see, it's a beautiful sunny day, glorious bright blue sky, crispy white snow. Spot's found some deer tracks. So the only problem is it's -5 degrees F, which is -20 centigrade. Hear that? There's a woodpecker behind me somewhere. Okay, come on Spot, this is too cold. Let's get in the warm and do something. Alright, it's a damn sight warmer in here, I'll tell you. Okay. Bottom frame tubes. Now, as I mentioned, major reason we're putting bottom tubes on isn't so much for the engine, because that's mounted nice and rigidly, rear, front and top. It's because we're going to have to mount footrests, and being a scrambler, they're going to take some abuse. They're not just going to be rests to put your foot on. You're going to be standing on these and all that sort. I wanted something more hefty, or heftier, than just the engine mount. Now the engine mount itself, the other ones on the engine casings are 10mm. This one for some reason was 12mm. So as soon as it was 12mm and it's big heavy boss all the way through, I've reamed it out to 1/2 inch. So there's a piece of 1/2 inch threaded rod. So we're going to make this bolt out of 4140. So it's going to be really hard steel. Alright, so what are we going to do? Well, you remember the original plan. The reason I cut these at an angle like that, let me make sure you can see that. Yes. Was so that we could put the tube like that. But if I put the tube like that, it obscures this bolt. So we're going to have it come down. That's the first thing. The next thing is going to be the footrest. Now the way the BSA footrests go on is, you see this raised piece here, that fits into a slot on a boss on the frame. There we goes on that way. So we don't have that. I did think of making it the same way, but I've come up with a better idea. Now, the way the Rickmans were, the bottom tube was here and the footrest had a piece of plate on like that, curved, which actually went onto there and clamped on, and then the footrest was on here. So we're going to do a sort of one of those. Right, so there's that. Then the last thing we've got to think about is we're going to get from here all the way under there up to the bottom of the front tube. The easiest way to do that, other than, because if not we're going to have a bend here, bend there, and it's going to have to bend that way, is to make it in two pieces. So what we need here is a connector piece, which is also the engine mounting, which is also the footrest mounting. So what I've come up with is this. I'm going to show you. We're going to make a second one of these, so you'll see that. That's going to go on there. I've thought of a way of putting the footrest on so it'd be nice and rigid. But the other thing about it is I can make my bend here and then just cut the straight part there and it'll fit on. And the same here. I can make the bend for here, and then when I've got it nice there, I just need to mark it here, cut it, slip it on, and then I can fold it up into there. So what we've got to do is get all the blooming rulers that I've moved. Hold on a second. Now you remember also that the width of this engine mounting is less than the distance between the inside of these two tubes, and that's good because we want to have a spacer there to let us tilt the engine to get it in and out. So the first thing I need to know is how far in it is from there. So I've already measured it, and it's 5/8 from there to there. So we're going to be able to put a 5/8 spacer in here, because this I've made 1 inch, which is the same as the tube is going to be. So we're going to have a 5/8 inch spacer there. Then we're going to have that on. Right, so then we need to go from here to here. So what I'm going to do here, this is the piece of tube I bent for the top of the frame where I didn't make it long enough. But as you can see, if I use that like that, if I cut that off square, well, not square, but horizontal, all the engines like that, I can put that there. Now this is 3/4. Oh, the heating come on. You'll just have to live with it, I'm afraid. Although this is 3/4 tube and this is inch, so we're going to use inch. The dies I have are the same for the two tube sizes. So the 1 inch tube also is going to be 7 inches there. It's a 3.5 inch radius die. So I'm not sure. I might just be able to do a 180. I think I must have kept saying 360 when I did this because a couple of people mentioned it. If I can just do a 180 and then cut it in the middle, then that'll go on there. And as I say, that will go on there. Then basically we'll do the same thing for the other side. We'll make it like that and then we'll just flip it in to meet the front down tube. Right, so I'll leave talking about the footrests for now. Let me go and show you how I made this. This is what we're going to start with. Piece of 1.5 inch diameter bar stock. Now I could have used square stock, except for the fact that I don't have a 4-jaw chuck yet for the new lathe, for the Sheldon. So I have no way of holding it. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure 1 inch along here, mark it, we're going to put it in the lathe and turn this down to 1 inch. Now we actually want it to 864 thou to slide inside the 1 inch tube, but I'm taking it down to 1 inch because I need to be able to put it into a collet. When I've got it down to 1 inch, 1 inch, I can put it in this, where are we, this 1 inch collet. It'll go in like that, and then we can put it in the mill it flat, turn it over, mill it flat, turn it over, till we've got 4 flats that are giving us our 1 inch sides. Then while it's still in here, we'll find the center point and we'll drill a 1/2 inch hole through that. Then it can go back into the lathe. We'll hold it on this end that we've turned down to 1 inch. We'll turn the other end down to the 864, turn it round, hold it here, and it's keeping it all nice and concentric. Turn that down to 864, and then just to lose a little bit of weight, we'll drill it out 1/2 inch to about there. This is 1 inch long. We're going to drill it about 1.25 inches in, and then that will be that made. So let me put it in the lathe, and the first thing I'll do, as I say, is turn down 1 inch of it to a 1 inch diameter. There's the 1/2 inch rod that we're going to make the long stud out of. There's our 5/8 spacer, and there is that. Now then, I've marked on here the halfway mark, and as I say, this is the same radius that I'll be putting in the 1 inch. So when that is level with that, I've cut this level, and that's up there like that, level, just nice. So I don't have to prat around making 2 90-degree ones. I'll just make one 181 and cut it right in the middle. Now this is the first stage. I've run it down just to clean it up, because you remember it was a rough, rusty sort of surface, so I've cleaned it up so I can get some decent measurements, and I've marked on 1 inch. So this, which is now just under 1.5 inches, we're going to take down to 1 inch. So I've already set this to 0. So I need to take 230 off. Where's the button? And you know the drill from now on, from all the machining channels you use. I'm just going to carry on till I get that down to 1 inch, then I'll bring you back for the next step. There it is, down to 1 inch. And for those of you who wondered, I did use some cutting oil for all the other cuts. I just forgot that first one, so the finish is much nicer. Right, so that's down to 1 inch so that we can fit it into our collet block. So let's tighten that up and we'll go and put it in the mill. Now this is the second setup. Got it in its collet block in the vise here. This end is completely flush, so I'm using that as the datum there. So each time I take it out and turn it round, I'll just make it flush to there again. So we're going to start off. Got to get some end mills sharpened. This is about the sharpest one I could find. It's 5/8. I was using a 1/2 inch one for the other one, which was nice and easy because I could just set it up on the DRO and then move it across 1 inch, and that gave me my 1.5, because of course if that's at 0 it's actually cutting a 1/2 inch, so when I'm over the 1/2 inch and another inch, it's actually cut 1.5 inches. But anyway, I'll use the DRO to set this as a 0 point, and I can just come back here because I can eyeball this, and then when I get to there I'll know I'm right. So let's get going and touch off. Further away than I thought I was. There we go, we're just touching. So let me set this to 0. Out the way. And away we go. Getting this so I'm right to get my 0 point here. It's not that critical. Alright, all I'm going to do now is just keep going down. That's one side done. So what we do now is take that out. Turn it round, whoops. Turn it round 90 degrees, put it in. Make sure we get this tighten it up, and then we'll start again. There it is with all 4 sides done. So what we're going to do now, we've got that set at 1/2 inch, is we're going to mark this to drill our hole. Alright. Then this is 1.5 inches long. I'll mark that at 3/4. Right, I'll punch that and then we'll put it back into the mill and drill a hole. Now I've spot drilled the punch mark and now I'm going to drill a pilot hole. I know for 1/2 inch a lot of people just use the drill, but I don't know, I never like that. Get that off there. See my snazzy new pliers? These are for pulling stuff off the lathe to keep everybody happy. Now then, to be honest, I would have found that very boring to watch. So I'm going to change over to a 1/2 inch drill and then just drill it and bring you back. There it is with its 1/2 inch hole in and a couple of little chamfers. Right, next stage, back into the lathe. Next stage, we're going to turn this down to 8/64, and I've got a piece of the 1 inch tube to check it that it's a good fit. So we're going to turn that to 1/8/64. Then I'm going to drill a hole in the end, then I'm going to turn it round and do exactly the same to the other end. And here's one side finished. Hole drilled in it, bit of muck in there, chamfered off, and as I say, here's some of the tube. Just a nice fit in there. Okay, so let me put this in the lathe, this end on, turn this down and drill a hole in there, and then we can go and put this on the bike. Last part of the process. That's the other side turned down for that. I've already drilled the pilot hole, so I'm not. Here we go. Excuse me. Right, that's it. I'll just deburr it a little bit. That's those two done. Let's go and bend some tube. Alright, let's see what 1 inch 16th wall chrome moly is like to bend. Taken up the slack, got my pointer to 0, got enough sticking out here I think. I've put 2 bolts in, 2 anchor bolts in the far legs. I hope that's going to be enough because I only had 2. I thought I had 4, but if not, you'll have to wait till I can go to the hardware store again. Oh God! Have I got this right? No, maybe not. Hang on, let me have a look. Now, I'm sure you all noticed, but I was in the wrong place. I got to thinking about it, I thought to myself, now wait a minute, when I started before, I was pulling it this way. So I think I had it sort of at the end of its travel. No wonder I couldn't pull it. Anyway, I moved around here and I just gave it a little pull and it started to move. So, let's see what we can do. Oh, that's more like it. Honestly. Men and written instructions, eh? Ah, there we go. I thought this was supposed to work alright. Alright. Well, I guess this is another one of those jobs I won't bore you with watching. Now you've seen me making a balls up of it. There you go, you see, look. So I'll switch you off and I'll just keep pulling on this till I get round 180 degrees. Well, something went wrong there. Look at that. I noticed that I got so far around it was coming out of the die. When I took it out, look, completely flat. Maybe you can't get beyond 90 degrees, I don't know, maybe I didn't have it in tight enough. Okay, well, it's not cheap tubing to be scrapping like that, but let me have another go. I thought before I ruined another piece of tubing, we might as well see if this will work. So, I've marked this. The idea is, look, that goes on there, and that goes on there, and that goes there, and that clears that. We can put a bracket on there. When we put the bracket on, we'll make it come up so that it acts as a bit of a brace for that joint. So that'll work. See if it's still level. Oh, come on. Prattling about. Yeah, see that? Well, you can't see it. That's level. Alright, so the idea is good. And as I say, if I... Oh! Let me move you around a second. And then the idea is, you see, I put that on there and I make a longer one. And then I can just bend that over till it matches up there and then weld it all up. So that works. I'm going to try with another piece of tube, and now I think about it, I might have read somewhere about lubricating the tube. So let me try that. Alright, I put some lube on and I only took it to 90 degrees and it's about right. I'm going to send a picture of that other one off to JD Squared and see if I'm doing something wrong. As you can see, it's still flattened it out a little bit, but not much. I don't know if they've made the die incorrectly. But anyway, there we go. and our bolt will pass through. We'll have a bracket on this side, I guess, because it doesn't look as if there'll be enough room to get a nut through there as well. But the idea works. Hang on, let's see if we can. So there's one. Of course, just as with the 3/4, now I'm a bit short of tube, wasting that piece. But anyway, I'll order some more. It only takes a day to come. And I've got enough to make this front piece, or I could make the one on the other side. That's what we'll do. We'll make the one on the other side and we'll get both these done. And we'll get the plate put on there. And then we'll look at the front. Now, I've put a piece of 1/2" threaded rod through because I don't know what size this through bolt's going to be until I've got, because it's going to come right through the footrest. So until they're on, I didn't want to start threading rod. So I've just put a piece of that in, bolted that up tight, got my little clever little doodad there. So let's get this tacked up and go from there. Mind your eyes. Right, there's that. Now I'm going to bronze down here so I can fill in and it will run in a bit. So that's everything held in place. Now I'll weld and bronze as much as I can, and then we'll go back and look at the back piece of the other side, because that one is going to be slightly more difficult. Now then, as it turns out, I don't think I do have the problem I thought I had over here. With the engine being moved over this way a little bit, I thought, and also, I don't know if you can see it, on the other side this is flat. Here this sticks out a bit and it's sort of the sump, so there's nothing I can do about that. And I thought that with that on out here, so the tube would clear that, I was going to be coming a bit outside of this, which would have meant making this be angled out slightly. But I think that we're all right. So I've made quick measurement. Oh, one other thing, you know, I don't like to waste money. So that bend I made that flattened out, I looked at it and I thought, you know what, that might squash back round in the press. So I worked on it a little bit, and it's not perfect, but it's not scrap anymore, so that's going to be fine. Alright, so from a quick look at this, I think we're 3/8 there, which is good because of course that gives us more room to twiddle the engine in. So we'll put a little bit of pipe on this side, a little bit of tube there, so we know we're not touching. That's clear there. And we'll put this piece on here. And no, it's gonna have to angle very slightly outwards. Let me put a nut on this. I can maybe make this spacer a little bit less, but I don't think, not much. And actually, looking at this, the way we're going here, I don't know if 12 inch, well it should be, I don't know if 12 inches is going to be enough for this with the footrests on as well. We shall see. So, let's have a look. we've got a little bit of space here. What's that there? That's a piece of 1/8 inch. No, we've only got about 1/16, so I can't go any further in. And yeah, that is just fractionally at an angle. So when I cut this, I'm not only going to have to cut it to be horizontal, I'm going to have to cut it to be sloping from this side to the middle. So first and foremost, let's see about cutting this. So we'll cut that with a cutting disc on the angle grinder. And as I say, I've got to slope it very slightly. Either that or I could slope this. Do you know what? I think it'd be easier to put the angle on this than to try and get, if I can get that cut flat, then, well, let me cut it flat. I know I'm dithering on here. Let me cut it flat and then we can offer it up. And then we can see if we need to angle it a little. So let me go and get the angle grinder and cut that off. Well, when I cut this piece off and cut this part to length, I've actually cut them a little short so that I can get plenty in there to fit on. I found that it was the least little bit of an angle to get that. Hang on a second. There we go. To match up with that. Comes out slightly. But not much. About 1/8 of an inch if that. So let me bring the welder round and we'll get that welded up. I might have to take the engine out to get these welded all the way in. Take the back plates off, I can get at the back on both sides. So here there might only be this little bit at the front I can't get at. Alright, let me move the camera so I can bring the welder round. Now I've taken the engine out and it came out nicely. I took it off from the other side actually. It just tipped over and came straight out. Oh, by the way, if my voice sounds a little bit strange, it's because yesterday I was at the dentist and I got a front tooth taken out. It had absorption, which is a sort of thing that starts inside, so it cracked. So they took it out, so now I have this big gap and I whistle a bit. Anyway, I took the engine out so I could weld these in. I've dressed them up a little bit. I think we can see from that angle that this one comes out slightly. So that's going to make making this back mounting here, it's going to be a little angle, so we'll have to work on that. The other thing is I need an extra little bit to go on here. So I've got a magnet around the back. I'm going to weld about 1 inch on there for this tube to come up to. So that tube is going to go up like that. Alright, so let me weld this on. I'll put the engine back in and then we'll come back and do the re-engine mounting and everything stayed nice. Okay, now I'll put the engine back in, welded a little bit on the front. So now we're going to start on these mountings here. So, usual thing, cardboard template. I've actually started working on these. So the cardboard template goes on there like that, and it's going to go up past where this welded seam is. So that's going to add a little bit of strength, and then actually when we've got the whole thing in, I'm going to put a top. Because of what this mounting is, you know, we've got a really good firm mounting up the back at the top. Front's mounted in firmly. Oh God, this whistling with my tooth is annoying me. Top's mounted. Now we have that big mounting there. So I've just made this out of 16th because it's all going to be boxed in as well. It's going to be ample. So got the usual cross piece, and that isn't so much structural, it's just to keep the two plates right when you tighten the nut up. So that's going to go on like that. Whoops. I've already cut one for the other side. So what we're going to do with this one is we're going to put them on like that. Then I'm going to put a clamp in, make sure this still slides nicely. And then, as I say, once I've fastened this on, I'm going to make sort of a cover that goes all of it, so it'll be bronzed into there and around the edges and down and across the bottom. So this, apart from making a nice mount, is going to strengthen up that weld there. So let me get this clamped up and some bronze put on, and then I'll bring you back. As I say, I used a clamp on this one, so it's tacked in a few places, both side plates. Big thing, has anything moved? No, we're still fine. So I can't bronze much of this in because I can't quite get at it here. It'll have to wait until it's all done. But what we're going to do, as I mentioned, is put a piece along right over it like that, all the way around. So it'll box the whole thing in. Even though it's only 16 gauge, well 16th inch, it'll be really strong. And as I say, that's bridging that weld, so that'll be good. Right. Now on this side, I'm going to have to build this up differently. Oh, sorry about that. I can't just take my pieces, put my tube in, bronze it all together and then offer it up because of this angle. On the other side, the tube was vertical, so I could get a nice right angle to the piece of rod that's going to be the bolt. But here, they're different angles. So what I'm going to do is actually build it up a piece at a time. I'll put the back piece on, or the inside piece I suppose I should say. There's a little nub there on the engine, which I was thinking was going to be a problem, but it's actually the mount for the starter motor, so I can just cut that off and forget about it. Then we'll put our spacing tube on. Then we'll put that piece on. And then what I'm going to do is just clamp that one up first. Make sure this rod, it's difficult trying to reach through here to get all the other side. Make sure this rod will go backwards and forwards through it. See, which it won't now when I'm going at an angle. Oh, come on. Oh, it's that piece on the inside sticking. Like that. Where are we? So you get them so they'll go through. Tack this one. And then I might even try and tack the back one if I can get at it. And then when I take the engine out, I'll put the piece in between, making sure that this will slide, and then I'll do it all up. So let me put a couple of tacks on this and then we'll try that. Now what with dentists and having to go out because we've had more snow and more snow, not a lot, but it just keeps coming, and I'm trying to keep in front of the garage clear for taking the bikes out to this show. So this is probably going to be it for this week. But we'll see, I might be able to sneak out and do the front part. Anyway, let me get this fastened. Now there's the first stage done. Put it on with the clamp. And that's still fine in that one. So I'll tack it a little bit more. Then I'll pull that out. Put the back one in. And tack that, make sure this rod will still go through. Where am I? So you make sure that will still go through all right. And then when this is out, I can drop the tube in just in case I've got to angle the ends of the tube to fit in. Because as I say, the tube isn't going to be exactly, it's going to be true to this, but not necessarily to these. So let me do this and put the one in the back. And I'll put the inside plate on as well. So, and that bolt goes in there nicely. So when I take the engine out, I can pop the little spacing piece in and make sure everything's good. Okay, that's another date done. We'll see what we can manage to squeeze in tomorrow. Alright, well that is all for this week because I forgot about having to go to the dentist to get my temporary bridge in. And as you can see, I'm going back out. We've had more snow, so I've got to clear out to get the bikes ready to go to the show tomorrow. So that's it for now. I promise that next week we'll finish off all the bottom mountings and get started on other stuff. So until then, go off and enjoy yourselves.